Hello there guys, welcome to a slightly different video, but basically I've been playing Deadlock for I don't know how much, so many weeks now, and I've had a blast, and we finally got to stream it and talk about it and make videos, all that jazz. So I figured I would, I've been streaming it mostly, but I wanted to do some videos on, I don't know, tips and tricks, and we've also been analyzing games, and so if you guys have any tips and tricks, if you want me to go through matches, like matches I've lost or won, and analyze them, if you have, I don't know, we could watch some other games, anything, yeah, just comment down below and we'll see what I can do on stream or in a video. But basically I want to talk about my current favorite hero, which is Viscous. This was a hero I skipped for a long time. Many of the heroes I haven't really bothered with because the kit seems like, not really interesting. And I mean, you're not really supposed to like all the heroes, I suppose, because they fill different roles or play very differently, I suppose. So, but like any other hero in the game, you can build Viscous very differently, right? So, for example, Bebop. You can build him. The build I started with Bebop, that's basically made me not enjoy him at all, was the gun build. It is really cool. It requires you to farm a lot, and it goes all out on your laser weapon, like your basic attack, and really high fire rate, and you destroy enemies that way. I felt like it wasn't really working out for me, but that's the beauty of it. You can just find a different build. And the one that I enjoy now, which I've seen is quite more common now, is the double bomb build. So you basically hook players in, you use your bomb twice on the same enemy, and then you knock them away. And you scale spirits, so the bombs deal a ton of damage, which also actually buffs your ultimate as well. So you can combo literally all your abilities and deal a ton of damage that way. So that was like more fun for me. And Vindicta is another great example. It's kind of similar, where I started off with the gun build, which is very similar to Bebop, but you go all out on gun damage. You still do some decent damage with your ultimate and stuff, but there's a different build I'd rather try with Vindicta, which is literally that, right? Where you go more spirit. I think it's more balanced towards, towards the end game it's a bit different, but basically you rely more on your ultimate and hitting your targets, which it can hit really hard. But yeah, like all the different heroes, you can build them differently. Like Dynamo is also one of my favorite heroes. You can go like damage route or full on support, or the one I do is kind of like a mix. Like you deal a ton of damage, but you can also support your team. So yeah, it's similar. It's the same with Viscous. The build I like to use focus on splatter, but also puddle punch. So your main two damaging abilities, and to do that I picked a build that basically, it gathers the enemies that I'm in, or the items I'm interested in, but I don't follow this exactly. And I think this is important as a tip, is you need to, when you enter a game, you need to know what lane you're in. Am I in solo or am I in duo, right? So when you enter a game, up here you have 6 people. They all have colors assigned to them. So here on the enemy team you have 2 purple ones. These are a duo lane, so these 2 heroes will be in the same lane, initially at least. And then you have a solo lane, and I'm in solo lane, and we have a solo lane purple, right? So you can tell which lane you're gonna be in and if you're solo or duo. Now, about 80% of my games in solo queue, I get assigned a solo lane, and I just finished a game, and it's rough. Let me say, we had like a 50-minute game and we lost, and it is frustrating. But there are a lot of new players, and you can tell when people in your match are new, and they make a lot of mistakes. So hopefully they'll learn from it and we get better games, but we'll see what happens. So you want to identify which lane you're in. Are you solo, duo? Who are you facing against? Is there more spirit damage, bullet damage? And obviously adjust as you go. I've seen people just go straight up, like literally follow the guide, you know, bit by bit, and I don't do that. Like what I normally do with this build is I go with velocity, endurance, lifesteal, and then skip these. I like to go spirit strike, and we'll get into the details why, but I like to pick and choose basically, and then obviously see, basically read the situation you're in and what do I need, right? Do I need defenses, or if you're a support like Kelvin, he can heal like crazy. It's actually pretty sick. You can do a similar build on Dynamo, but yeah. So that's the build I like to use. There is a support build, so if you want to do support, you can do that, or you can do a mix, right? I haven't really done a gun build on Viscous. I could try it out, but I don't think it's a good idea because your abilities are so good, so it will be a bit odd, I think. In any case, let's talk about the abilities of Viscous. And like I said, the main ability for the build that I use is Splatter. So you throw a goo ball and it leaves like an AoE on the ground. Any enemy within this, they're slowed. It doesn't deal damage over time in the puddle, they're just slowed. But it lingers for quite a bit, right? Now, the thing about this ability is it was buffed in the patch this week, which I did not expect. I'm pretty sure it dealt more than enough damage, but I think they go off of win rate and stuff. Like there's a really good website called Deadlock Tracker, I think .gg, I believe, and the win rate on Viscous isn't actually great. I think it's one of the last heroes in the list. It has gone up now by a few percent, but it's still not great. The highest is 7, like 60%, which is crazy. It actually went up as well. But yeah, Splatter is really nice. I like to max this out. The double bounce is actually kind of nuts. If you can hit every single bounce, it can deal, it depends on like defenses, right, and stuff on your enemy, but like 2000 damage probably if you hit all of them, around there. An amazing farm, like abilities for farm with as well, killing neutrals. It's actually a pretty disgusting late game. You just clear out everything in no time. So yeah, it's really great, and it's the main one that we use. It tends to have a very short cooldown later on. The second ability is actually the one that I get quite late in lane. Even if I'm solo lane, I always go Splatter first. Like that's like number one is Splatter, and my goal with Splatter is not. I like initially I might hit a few creeps or troopers as they're called, but my goal isn't actually to hit the troopers. It's to just keep poking, you know, whoever's in my lane, like the enemy, you know, facing against. So I'm trying always to predict where they're going, and then you launch the goo, right? And then hopefully you hit. A lot of people, we'll get to a few interesting things you can do with Viscous, but a lot of people don't expect it. So the cube is quite late because I go Splatter, doubled puddle punch. So if the fifth one is the cube, you can go this earlier. You can like get one in puddle punch and then cube. It completely depends on, you know, how you're doing in your lane. If your solo lane is struggling and maybe even have enduring spirit or lifesteal and it's still rough, you know, it's up to you. But I always go one Splatter, 2 puddle punch, and that's because at that point I actually have 2 punches, which we'll get to. But the cube is basically you put someone in a cube. It's either you or an ally. They cannot take damage and they will be healed over time. It can be cancelled, so don't worry about it. What's important here is that it can actually be pushed around, or if you use it on a sloped surface, right, like stairs or ramps or anything, you will actually slide down. Allies and enemies can use their melee attack to move it around, right? So, and you can move it as well with your puddle punch. So if I use the bot here and I put him in a cube, punch him, Well, I can punch me as well. I want to do that afterwards, but I guess we do that now. You do this, and then you just punch it. You actually slide. But like you saw, you can like it's a surface of auto punch. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. But like I said, enemies can also move it, so you gotta be a bit careful when it comes to that. It's very rare though. People just tend to wait for you to exit the cube, and that's it. So yeah, we already did the pole punch, right? You aim this, click, it punches the enemy. This was sort of nerfed. Basically, they increased the time it takes for the punch to appear by 0.10. So it's a bit slower, which means you have to be better at aiming this, right? And predicting where enemies are.
It's harder than you think, doesn't it?
But the important thing with puddle punch, quite a few things. We already know you can push enemies, you can push the blocks, you can push them in different, not just up, which is great because if you've been playing, you know that in lane you have things like this, right? You have signs, you have different types of cover in lane that, if you push the lane enough and you bring someone down a bit low on health, they tend to hide behind anything they can find, like signage.
This may hurt.
So you can actually punch them. If you know they're standing here, you can literally do this and you will actually hit them, and you will actually fling them up in the air, and they have to dash away or try and retreat, right? So it's a very good tool to force enemies out of their position. You can also put on walls, right? So you can push enemies away. You can push them towards you, which I like to do as well. Like if an enemy is low on health and they're hiding, you can push them. If they're in a hallway, like you don't even have to see them.
Who would have thought that punching strangers would feel so
there's
good?
A lot of that stuff you can do with the punch, and you can use it on yourself and allies. If you
Who would have thought that punching
don't
strangers
have the
would
movement
feel
speed
so
or
good?
whatever it might be. It has a lot of uses. You can use it in many ways, but it's quite often where you don't really expect it. So in lane you have a shop right next to the guardian, and a lot of players tend to like to kind of hide there, right? If they're low, they wouldn't go to the shop and like around the corner. Like I said, if you have the bounce, it doesn't matter. You don't even need the bounce. Like you can use, if you stay on the left side of the lane, you can still hit the area with the shop, right? Depending on which side it is. So if you're on the far side, if you stick to the opposite side, you can always hit the blob if they're standing by the shop. Same with the punch, right? So even if players fall back to cover, you can literally punch them up. You can punch them if they're on cover. There's some cover that's like next to the wall. You can punch them up, or you can punch them to the side. And I've done this quite a few times. And if you have someone like Vindicta, for example, with the ultimate, I've done a lot of setups for Vindicta where I like punch them up in the air or away like from a wall, and she will just snipe them and they die. Right? You can do a lot of setups, so that's pretty fun. And then the last ability before we get to items is Goo Ball. It's basically you turn into a Goo Ball. I mean, you bounce around, you deal damage, you do a short stun to any one hit. What's really nice in the latest patch is that they updated the movement. So it used to be very... Moving with the Goo Ball was very sluggish. Like it was way less responsive. You see how responsive it is now? It was way less, and it was like it was like playing one of those old like games where you play as a ball character, or like a ball you have to like roll around. It was like you were on slippery ice or something. It was very weird, right? It required a lot of skill to maneuver and not hit stuff, right? You want to avoid, but they did change that. It is way more responsive now, so keep that in mind if you already played Viscous. They did change that. The Goo Ball is really nice in that sense. Like it deals damage and stuns. It scales really well with spirit, and the maximum the maximum upgrade allows you to cast abilities and use items. Now I normally don't level this up until late game. I feel like it's cool but not super useful, but I might try a different build for that. So but yeah, those are the abilities. And another thing to keep in mind, if you already played Viscous at one point before the patch, they swapped these upgrades for Puddle Punch, so now the damage and cooldown have been swapped. And not sure why, but I guess they wanted to help out with damage and slow and setups, maybe. Not sure. And I don't think it's the biggest deal either, because you get items to lower your cooldown, right? So it's not yeah, it's fine, really. But I want to bring one thing up when it comes to Puddle Punch, and it's related to items. You might have already noticed this, but this build, and I talked about this before, because I picked like melee lifesteal and spirit strike, you know, and you can see there are a few more like life strike. There are a few items for melee damage, right? That might seem a bit odd. This is not a melee hero, but the important thing here is that splatter and your ultimate here, goo ball, these two scale with spirit. Puddle Punch does not scale with spirit, right? So if you buy a spirit item, it's not going to do anything. If you look at this, it modifies splatter and goo ball. That's it. Puddle Punch counts as a light melee attack. I mean, it's literally a fist, right?
Attacking.
That is a melee attack, a light melee attack, which means you scale it with melee damage. So if I use Puddle Punch, it deals 70 damage, right? If I buy this and punch him again, it deals 80 damage. And then I buy Spirit Strike, again, 90 damage. So you scale this with melee damage. Now, I haven't really scaled it as much as Splatter, but it actually scales quite a bit. It's what I noticed.
It's harder than you think, doesn't it?
Even though there are a few melee items, they're still very strong. Like Life Strike is even 40%, so now it's 108. You know, it scales fine, I would say, really. But Splatter's still the main ability that I use, and it's absolutely ridiculous. That one of the most satisfying things, except for farming neutrals and stuff, and like destroying everything, is when you have a team fight, and either the team fight is in a enclosed location, or enemies are trying to fall back and they're going through these shortcuts. You literally throw this into a hallway and it bounces like crazy and it deals a ton of damage, right? Like the smaller the space, the better Splatter is, right? So when you have the upgrade, that is the bounce upgrade. So like I briefly talked about before, I like the velocity mag, like immediately early game. It's like mag, spirit, lifesteal, and then I go spirit strike. And then after spirit strike, it kind of depends, right? Like I said, you should change it up a bit, but like an extra charge is always nice because you get like a third charge on your Puddle Punch, and you're already buffed it twice, right? So why not? I like to have cooldown, very nice. And then normally what I do is, I believe I always go cooldown into like Soul Shredder. Soul Shredder basically makes them take more damage. So you know, you shoot enemy and they get a debuff. Right? Now they take more spirit damage. So you do more damage. Now here's another thing they changed in the latest patch. They changed the projectiles of your basic attack. The goal was to make it better, like easier and, you know, more enjoyable to use. I think I've gotten used to it now, and yeah, it's definitely better, but it can still be hard to feel like you actually get to deny orbs that you should have and it doesn't, things like that. One thing that I'm still not convinced about though is that they removed the zoom. So now you have like a right click attack, which is an AoE. It can't headshot. It's like an AoE attack, so it consumes more ammo. It's kind of like Yamato, where she has the like the bomb attack when you right click. So, I mean, so far I'd rather have the zoom personally. I still try to zoom at times, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have this attack. I always forget about it, like I really do, because I'm so used to using splatter instead. Because I'm like, why would I not use splatter if I have a shorter cooldown of splatter and it bounces? Say, I think it's supposed to be an early game thing, and I haven't really used it much. So I don't know. We'll see. I will keep using it and see what I think, but I'm not convinced by it right now. That's for sure. So that's what I like to do, and then obviously I go defenses. So I go pretty ham on, I mean, there's like bonus health, but other than that, it's mostly like damage, and then immediately go one of these armor types. I rarely get debuff reduce. It completely depends. If you feel like you need it, you should get it. Spirit Steel, it's kind of okay. I sometimes use it, but most of the time I actually skip all the way down here. There are so many nice things you can do here. Similar to Bebop, the double bomb build, there's an Echo Shard for this, because it's literally the same idea, right?
Godspeed, you beautiful ball of goo.
Well, now I have cooldowns, but you use your or use your splatter, right? And you press the Echo Shard and you use it again. It's the same thing, right? Because you're gonna deal so much damage with splatter in endgame, and it bounces and everything, and you just, you just have to remember to not press anything else. Right, you have, because this thing or this item is the last skill you used. So if I use a different one, it will reset the wrong ability, basically. So, but yeah, that's how I do. I mean, like I said, I don't follow this exactly. I just think it's a nice like gallery of items that I like to use. I mean, you can definitely make your own, and you don't have to publish it. You can make your own builds, like this is what I want to play, and I do have at least 2 heroes where I kind of want to make my own build, because I know how I want to play them and I haven't found one that fits that. Like, I mean, a third one would be Viscous, but I feel like I kind of know what I pick anyway, and it's just nice to have them here, and I know they're here when I need them. I don't know if this build is updated, but yeah. It might be, but because there's a new item come up called Headhunter, which is really cool. Wouldn't fit this hero though, I think, but I don't know. Maybe one day I'll try a gun build and see if that works. But yeah, I doubt it, because your abilities are so good. So yeah. That's pretty much it. Splatter main ability, Puddle Punch secondary. It's still it's so good, and you can really surprise your enemy with this, push them out of the way, do crazy cool setups. Remember, it scales with melee damage. It's a melee skill, so not spirit. The heal is really nice, but it's not something I prioritize, but it's definitely incredibly useful. I've saved a lot of people using this, and myself, of course. Goo Ball, honestly, I rarely use this as an initiator. Sometimes I do. I've been doing it more lately, but honestly, most of the time I used to have this as an escape, and that's pretty much it. Because it's actually pretty crazy now. It's easier to control. You can speed up. You can double jump, right? You can escape very, very quickly from a fight if you have to. But do know that since you're scaling splatter, your ultimate will also be very nasty. The ultimate scales really well with spirit. So if you feel like, oh, my splatter is insane, deals a ton of damage, well, your ultimate is also gonna be nuts. It's gonna deal a lot more damage than you think, and also, like I said, it stuns enemies. So yeah, do remember that when you actually get to mid-late game, pretty much. But yeah, that is pretty much it. That's how I like to play Viscous. I might try the support build. I feel like trying a gun build would be probably a bad idea. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, there are quite a few more builds I want to try out. Yeah, if you guys have any suggestions or anything, then yeah, just comment down below. Like I said, I started doing like analyzing games on stream as well. I could go through my games if that would be interesting. Maybe not just Viscous, but any other hero I suppose would work. And you know, I just tend to talk like while I play a match. I try to talk during it, like how I'm thinking and what we should do and what I'm planning and you know all that. So I just want to make it, you know. And I know I've been receiving messages also from back when I played Gigantic and made those videos. People appreciate that, so I'm trying to explain as much as I can. So yeah, that is pretty much it. I hope you guys are enjoying the game. I'm having a lot of fun. Like I've been playing a ton of this for a while now, and yeah, I have a lot more to explore, which is fun. And hopefully get a new hero soon, which is the Astro. I think is the code name. Yeah, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it's a cool hero. It's like a Wild West hero, and I think I'm gonna enjoy it a lot when it's actually released. We'll see. Cool. All right, that is it, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.